Okay, let me start over. Thanks for that reminder. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Passo. I am the Experiential Education Program Manager in the Center for Career Development. I've been at Rice for almost 13 years now, most recently, and in a variety of roles, most recently overseeing the Externship Job Shadow Program that we're going to talk about today in our Summer Experience Fund. I have been managing this program since 2016, and it's one of my favorite topics and a highlight of my job. So I can talk about it forever. So I will try to be quiet so that you can hear from our prior externs about their experiences and ask them questions. And I'm happy to answer questions throughout. If you want to take yourself off mute or put something in the chat, that's cool too. I'm going to go through some of the kind of logistics or mechanics of the program first, and then I'll throw it over to the panelists. So we'll go ahead and get started here. And I do have a dog with me, and hopefully she won't make herself known, but if you hear her, sorry in advance. I would like to just welcome you again. And hopefully you know that the CCD is all about educating, connecting, and empowering you to succeed during your time at Rice and after you graduate. This is our team. Here we are. We are comprised of, right now, 9 people. We do career counseling, and we also have our employer relations team. And today I'm going to really try to go as fast as I can here. So if you want me to slow down, let me know. But I want you all to understand what the purpose is of the externship and why you should participate. And I also want you to know when and how that you will apply to externships, because the deadline is on October 25th at 11:59 p.m. And I am definitely a stickler on that deadline. So if you email me the next morning saying you missed it, sorry, not happening. We start pulling the applications pretty much immediately after the deadline to start reviewing. Okay, so what's the difference between an externship and an internship? Externships are really short term. These are job shadow opportunities that might be a few hours on Zoom, or that might be half a day in person. A couple of externships will be longer than half a day. I know Madison had one that was multiple days. I think Reuben did too. So they can talk about that. A lot of our hosts, I would say the majority, are conducting virtual externships in January, although we do have some that are exclusively in person. So there's strong preferences both ways. These are unpaid. They are short term. So I'm just highlighting that because I think there's some confusion sometimes on this topic, whereas internships are longer term. We would say at least 6 weeks. They should be paid ideally, or at least for course credit. And internships usually involve some type of work that you're doing to contribute to the organization in addition to learning, whereas externships are all about exploration. You are exploring a career path. Okay, so the whole point of this program, again, is to explore a job function. So someone in their job, what they do, real talk, an industry. So if you know that you're interested in a particular industry, but don't know exactly what types of roles are under there, or an organization that might stand out. We do have a lot of organizations that you might have heard of in the past and ones that you've never heard of before. So it's all about you gathering information. The ones during winter break are going to take place between January 3rd and 7th. That said, there's a little bit of flexibility, and you'll see that in the postings, where the host might say, I'm flexible during that week or during another week during winter break. So it's not as rigid. But you want to make sure that you read in the postings when these are taking place, because some hosts do specify specific dates. So if you apply to something that takes place on January 5th and you know that you can't do that day, then don't apply, because they're not going to accommodate if they've picked a particular date. Does that make sense? I think. Okay. Just to recap last year's program, I thought it would be useful to show how many students participated, how many opportunities there were, and the career clusters. So this is how we sort the opportunities by career cluster. So if you are someone that might be interested in arts, communication, and entertainment, then you can filter by cluster. I would say keep an open mind, because a lot of externships fall under multiple clusters. So someone might work at Spotify, for example, but I wouldn't assume that's computer, IT, and math, because their job function might be something else. I know that's the case for TikTok. The host that we have there is in a business role, so it might be under finance, consulting, and enterprise. So you might want to just keep an open mind on that. But you can see we do have a range of opportunities last year, and I think it's equivalent this year so far, in every single career cluster. So no matter what you're interested in, there's something for you. These are typically informational interviews. It's an opportunity for you to connect to a host who is an alum, a parent of a Rice student, or a community member, some of our friends, for you to gather information about their careers. You might attend a meeting virtually or in person, or another kind of company event, but that's less common, especially in this kind of COVID or post, it's not post yet, world. You might get a virtual tour of their facility if that's something that they do, or you might just talk one-on-one with your host to have a discussion about their job. You might be able to connect with HR representatives also, if that's something that the host put into their agenda. And you'll see a range of descriptions for externships as well. We have hosts who have done this many times before. We have hosts who are brand new and are developing really cool experiences for students virtually and in person. And we also have hosts who are waiting to see who matches to them and finding out what you're interested in learning about before developing what you might do during this experience. So I don't have a concrete answer of exactly what you will do during your externship, except I know that you'll have an opportunity to have an informational interview and ask questions. Here's why I think you should apply to externships. Great way to explore a career path, super short term before committing to something longer term. Because you have to submit a resume to this particular program, it's a good way to start preparing for other experiential opportunities down the road. And it's also going to expand your network, your professional network, by at least one person. Some of these externships have multiple alums or multiple people in their department who you'll engage with, and you're expanding your network by that many people. I already mentioned this, but the hosts are primarily alums. I think it's like 70-some%, but really involved awesome parents with cool jobs and friends of Rice as well. Okay, how to apply. I'm going to show you how to apply, but first I'm going to tell you, you're going to search LH externships. You can also filter by label 2022 winter break externships. Again, keep an open mind. This program really is geared towards freshmen and sophomores. So the less experience you have, the better to get matched. Certainly we have juniors and seniors, and in the past, we've even had a handful of graduate students participate because they're still exploring. And that's cool too. But again, if you've already had an internship in a particular field and we see that application in the same exact field, then you're not likely to get matched, if that makes sense. We want students to explore a new career path or gain insight about an organization that maybe you haven't learned about yet. So all you need to apply is a resume. we, the CCD team, are your readers. So the hosts do not see your resume or your paragraphs of interest before your match. That is all the CCD team. And then you submit a paragraph of interest. Tell us why you're interested in a particular externship. And while you are welcome and encouraged to apply to multiple externships, anything that you find interesting, we'll do our best to match to one experience. If there's space in something else, maybe there's a group session you apply to and there's a spot open after you receive your initial match, then we'll go back and do some other matching if we have openings. But we want to see a different paragraph of interest for each one. If we start seeing the same exact paragraph of interest for every externship that you apply to, we do make a note of that. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's it. You need a resume, and it doesn't have to be in perfect shape. We just want to see maybe context for why you're applying to something.
And if you're nervous, you can ask your PCAs.
Yes.
For help.
Great. Thank you. Great point. If you want a resume review beforehand, that's awesome. We definitely encourage you to do that. But we're not judging your resume as part of the application or as part of the matching process. We're really trying to use it for context in addition to that paragraph of interest. Okay. So, and I'll go back and show you after I run through this. How this works is, again, the CCD reviews, we rank every single application by opportunity. Then we run an algorithm to make it as objective as possible and match you to one externship. And then we notify you. And so if you apply to something, make sure you're interested in it, because if you're matched, we expect you to go through with it. So make sure you're only applying to things that you would like to pursue. And once you're matched, I'll let you know that you have been matched. You can check Handshake to see which one you were matched to. If you applied to multiple, you'll do an orientation online. It shouldn't take too much time, but it'll hopefully help you think about preparing for the opportunity, asking great questions, and then reflecting on it afterwards. And then I will send an e-introduction to you and your hosts so that you can start communicating the logistics of your experience. And if you're in a group externship, I'll assign a group lead so the host isn't receiving a ton of different emails. These are dates you should know. Hopefully you know that externships are live currently in Handshake. You've got to apply again by October 25th by 11:59 p.m. I'll let you know by November 1st. And then I'll send those e-introductions out before Thanksgiving so you can get the ball rolling on confirming logistics for January. Okay, before we move to the panelists, I do want to show you, did I share both windows? Can you see Handshake now?
Yes.
Okay, you're good, perfect. So when you log into Handshake, you will go to the jobs tab. And then again, you can search Edge, and the externships will come up. Or if you wanted to filter a different way, or search by certain clusters, you can go here. Oh, it might pull up some other things too, but then you can see all of these different externships. So you will see the description in here, a website if they have one, who the host is, how they're affiliated, what they studied as an undergrad, whether it's virtual or in person, and when it will take place, where it says externship dates. So this particular one is flexible, open to scheduling. It doesn't have to be flexible. If that January 3rd through 7th timeline works for you, then it works for them too. So easy. And then to apply, you can read the instructions on what you need and go from there. Does anybody have questions? for me before we move to the panelists?
I was just going to emphasize that, well, no, could you pull it back up, Michelle? I was just going to emphasize that it doesn't matter what your major is. Like, if you're even remotely interested in a career in anything, which I hope you all are, you can see the, like, this is a great place to explore. Like, if you're majoring in like comp sci, but you might want to go into marketing, even though those seem completely unrelated. Like, that's part of what this program is about, is exploring, like, would I be interested in a marketing thing? I haven't taken any classes remotely interested in that, like remotely related to this, but I might, or like, do I want to do law? So whenever you're searching, could you scroll up on the one that you're on? Yeah, so you can see the title here is the company, and then the position, like the company, and then the person's title, and then you can see what cluster they're in. And so clusters are completely uncorrelated with majors. And so it's just really important to think about that as you're like looking for externships. Like, don't go with your major, go with just like what kinds of jobs you think you might want to do. And especially for those like arts and communication ones that like don't seem to have correlated majors at Rice, like explore those, because some people do like really, really cool stuff that like you might not know about, or you might not see that externship just because you like you thought that you were supposed to look for something else. So just going to emphasize that clusters are really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, that's Madison. That's a fantastic point. And the one I just pulled up is the licensed professional counselor, but they studied radio and television as an undergrad. So while we do have people who certainly have had linear career paths, a lot more have had nonlinear career paths. So just keep that in mind as you explore all of these different opportunities. Any questions or anything else to add before we start asking our panelists questions? All right. Well, does anyone have questions specifically for our panelists before I start asking just random questions? For those of you who joined today. Yes, at this time, the externship program really is geared towards undergraduates. If we see after the first round of matching is completed that we have opportunities that the hosts have deemed open to graduate students, then we'll release those to both undergrads and graduate students for kind of a second round of applications. What is the timer schedule for the master for graduate students? We don't know yet if any will be open to graduate students. This program really is geared towards undergrad, freshmen and sophomores specifically. How competitive are the externships? That's a good question. Yeah. Certain opportunities are competitive. That's why we encourage you to apply to multiple, because that algorithm, if you apply to one, it's unlikely that you'll get it, only because of the algorithm.
And
so
on that,
yep.
On that note, I would look up people on LinkedIn. So like, I'm really interested in consulting, and a lot of people are, and so those externships tend to be really competitive. So what I did was look at some of the other hosts that seem to be in that cluster, like that business, finance, and consulting cluster. And then I looked them up on LinkedIn and found somebody who used to work at a consulting company, but now he works somewhere else. And that helped me, like, I don't even know if anybody else applied for that externship. Like, I was able to find one where it like wasn't quote unquote competitive, just because people don't think to look a little bit deeper at some of the hosts or the things that they like used to do. And it also helped me get better perspective, because like I want to do consulting, but consulting specifically is an industry where you do it for a few years and then you leave. And so I was also able to talk to him about like, why did you leave? How did you decide at what point in your career to do that? And then how did you decide that this is where you wanted to go after? And so like, I got an even better experience, in my opinion, than if I had just gone to somebody who like already was a consultant. So definitely like use those clusters and look people up on LinkedIn that are within the cluster, but maybe don't do the exact job that you are looking for them to be doing.
Yeah, that's a great point. And again, exploring more than one opportunity. Since you just have to write a paragraph of interest, shouldn't take too long to apply. Hopefully you can identify a couple that are of interest. I've seen students in the past apply to up to 14. That's a lot. But if you find 14 out of the 221, which I think is a record, then go for it. You can also say in there, this is my top choice, or this is my 14th choice. And we'll take that into consideration, but when we're ranking, but again, once the algorithm does its work, you never know what you might get. I also have one more question here that I wanted to read out loud. And that's, is it possible to do multiple externships? Because there's a lot of things to explore. And the answer is probably. It depends what you apply to. So again, we do our best to match students to one opportunity, but if we have space and others that you applied to that maybe didn't get a match, then I would reach back out to see if you wanted to do more than one. And you can also put that in your paragraph. I'm open to doing multiple if matched.
It's all about finding the ones that nobody else is going for. And that's how you get to do multiple. And another thing to note is that we do these in like winter break and then also over spring break. So even if you only get one this winter break and maybe it wasn't your top choice, there's still another opportunity for you to match with somebody else or somebody in a different field in the spring or even like next year. And you said we might do some over the summer, right, Michelle? Were you looking at doing another round?
Probably not.
Okay.
No, we hit up the hosts for winter break and spring break. So if you're interested in doing something like this over the summer, and I would tell students who end up unmatched the same thing, then come to us and we can help you leverage LinkedIn and Sally Portal so that you could create your own kind of externship through an informational interview. Okay, I think we lost, unfortunately, one of our panelists who had to go to a class. So I want to move on to our panelists to go ahead and introduce yourselves. Tell us what you're studying, what class level you are, and well, where you shadowed or when and where you did your virtual or in-person externship. So whoever wants to go first, go for it. Thank you.
Madison, I think you could go first because you've been.
Okay, calling me out. It's fine. I was trying not to consume the conversation, but okay, Reuben. My name is Madison Bunting. I'm a junior at Martell. I'm studying operations research and psychology. And I'm also the student director of the Peer Career Advisor program, hence my plug earlier. So if you have any questions about that program or you don't know who your peer career advisors are, but you want someone to look over your resume, I can do it, or I can refer you to another PCA who's been trained. I've done several externships. So I think my first one was with a boutique consulting firm called Sendero. My host was really cool. Her name was Kelsey. And then I did one with a guy at PepsiCo. He wasn't the CEO, but he was like a step below. I don't remember what his title was. It was like growth transformation, something or other. And then I actually helped create an externship with a guy from Accenture, which is also another consulting company. And I can speak about it a little bit later, but I have also had some success leveraging connections I made through those externships to get them into internships. And so I will be interning with Accenture this summer.
Awesome, thank you.
I could go next. My name is Reuben. I am a junior from Rice studying electrical engineering. I did 2 externships, one with Intel in January of 2020. Feels so long ago. And then another one with Chevron, which was supposed to be spring break of 2020, but that got pushed to like fall of 2020. And that one was virtual, and the Intel one was in person. They've been great, really good experiences with both. I actually managed to turn my Intel externship into a full-time internship over the summer. and also next summer, and also this semester. So if you need help with like leveraging externships to internships, you could also ask about that. They're really great because you just get to network with so many people and make them like you.
Reuben is also a PCA.
I'm also a PCA for Rice.
So I think that internships are a happy outcome for externships, but not the expected outcome.
Yeah.
Because
For
the
sure.
hosts really are giving a little bit of their time just to share what their career path has been and maybe give some advice. The other thing is, and I always tell this to students, that you might go and have this shadowing experience and say, that's awesome. I'm going to continue on this path or try to reach that goal so I could be in that career function. And equally valuable is if you go and say, that's not what I thought it would be, and I can't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. And then you only spent, an hour or a few hours of your time having that kind of breakthrough, which is awesome. Grace?
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Grace. I'm a senior at Baker. I'm studying sport management and health sciences, and I've done multiple externships. My first one, which was in person, was at MD Anderson. I really enjoyed that, decided I was not interested in continuing in healthcare after that. But it was a really cool experience. Love my host. I still keep in touch with him. I've also done virtual ones with Oracle, Kimball Electronics, and the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, I think. So for these companies, I wasn't actually interested in working at any of them, but they're really great experiences to learn more about the specific fields. And I still keep in touch with all of my hosts, and they've been really great contacts for me as I was recruiting for internships last year. So definitely would recommend the experience, and it's really a fantastic process to go through just to make these connections.
Awesome, thank you. I didn't even know that from the first one that you did. Do we have anyone else on the line? I know we lost at least one or two panelists, but I want to make sure I'm not leaving anyone out. Okay, cool. All right, let me get my questions back out. Does anyone have questions for our panelists at this point? Okay, well, tell us why you decided to apply to this program and how many, if you can recall, did you apply to at that time?
I guess we can go in the same order. The first one I did with Sendero was similar to what Reuben said. Like it was that spring break 2020 when everything was chaotic. Like I had just gotten home. I didn't even know about the externship program. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just somehow missed all the communications. I don't know what I thought it was. And then I think I was meeting with somebody from the CCD. Like I'd went in for help with my resume, and they were like, oh, you should try externships. And I was like, what's that? And then they connected me with Michelle, and Michelle was like, well, yeah, we have some really cool hosts. And so she connected me with Sendero. And then I think I like normally applied for the one last winter with, I think I applied to like 6. I remember I applied to one at like OpenStax, which is also a really cool like nonprofit thing, like from Rice that does textbook stuff. I honestly don't remember. I think I just like was like, okay, what are all the ones that interest me? And then how much time do I have to write paragraphs? And I tried to pick things that were like very different, like kind of all over the place so that I could kind of see a breadth of things. Yeah. I'm gonna pass it on to Reuben.
Yeah, I didn't apply to many. I remember I applied to like 2 for freshman for winter break that 2020 Intel, and then like I think it was iOffice or something like that. I kind of knew that I wanted to go into something in the tech just because like well, as a freshman I didn't know much about it. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting, let me try to see what this is about. So I tried to look into that, and like the fact that it was with many other interns was also pretty cool. And I just thought that I was personally looking for things that kind of fit my major, just because I was all like, let's see what my major actually is, because I didn't know, of course. So yeah, I mainly just chose those based on like the career cluster.
I usually apply about 2 or 3 for each cycle, based on like interest in what I see is out there for applications. I typically look for first like any companies I'd be interested in like working for, interning for, to find out more about the culture and what that's like. So that's what I specifically did with the Oracle one this past winter break. And otherwise, I focused just on like the actual function that I think I might be interested in exploring. Like MD Anderson, I wasn't actually interested in working at MD Anderson, but I was interested in my host role, which is the VP of Development and like healthcare administration. So I think those are 2 main areas you can focus on when applying.
Yeah, all of this is good advice. Thinking back to kind of the goal of this program is really geared towards students who maybe haven't had a professional connection yet. And so I've heard from students in the past that they were nervous beforehand, but wish they weren't because they didn't need to be. So while we do have students, again, go through an orientation of sorts to prepare students for this experience, what advice do you have, or what do you wish that you would have known before your first externship? And why don't we start with Grace this time?
Yeah, I can say for my first externship, I was definitely nervous. Did not need to be, just like you said, Michelle. It was very chill. It was super nice. And I think a big thing actually is my Oracle one. My extern host was probably more nervous than me. He wanted to make sure I had a really good experience. And he said that like several times. He was like, oh, like, is this what you wanted? Like, is this, I really just want to make sure you had a great time and like felt like you learned something. So I think when you remember that everyone here has like dedicated their time to actually hosting an extern, and they're putting time and effort into designing an experience specifically tailored for your interests, know that like they're excited to meet you and excited to help you on your career journey, and that takes away a lot of the nerves.
One thing that I realized like after, and also helping organize one too, is that the hosts really want to just help you for the most part. They want to like give you exposure to the field. Like they're oftentimes been in the field for many, many years. And so it's something they're kind of passionate about, and they just like talking about it. So make sure you kind of like have questions lined up. Make it seem as if you're curious, even if you're not, but be curious. That's also a good thing, because then that makes it seem like as if you're interested and that you care.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I think coming with questions at least like made me feel prepared going in. I know for my first one, I was like, this is a real company. Like my parents are not in the business world. So I was like, I have no idea what to expect. Like, do I need to dress up? I don't know. And like she was so nice, and it was literally just chatting with somebody over Zoom. Like it wasn't what I built it up to be. Pro tips in terms of making questions, think about it from like all the different angles, right? So you can ask questions about the industry, you can ask questions about their company, and you can ask questions about their position or their career specifically. And so thinking about like, which of those 3 categories do you like, are you most interested in, like you want information about? And then you can kind of build questions around each of those. And then the CCD also has like a ton of resources for coming up with questions. But also like, it's just a conversation. So unless like you have like, that you want to know these like answers to these like 10 questions, you don't have to follow your questions. Like it can just be you being like, hello, I'm a freshman and I don't know what to do with my life. Please help. Like that's also totally valid. And they can be like, well, here's what I was thinking about when I was a freshman. And they'll probably say you're super ahead of things because they didn't do this when they were at Rice. Yeah, they're always so nice. Rice alums, they literally like want to help you. So
I think that's exactly right. That's a great reminder. What other question? I mean, I can keep going off of my question list, but I want to hear from the people who are participating today. Why did you come here? What questions do you have for the panelists while we're still live? And actually, I can stop recording. Maybe that'll help too.